Welcome to Modern Marketing TV. We're still in San Francisco, and today we have the one and only Thibault Imbert from Adobe. He's head of growth, but Thibault, you can tell it yourself. What should people know about you, except from being the organizer of Belgian Waffle Friday?
Thanks, guys, for having me. So that's true. I made this a thing at Adobe. Every Friday we have, every month we have Waffle Friday. It's a thing, so I'm proud of that, representing Europe. I started at Adobe, actually, it's surprising, in Silicon Valley, like more than 10 years ago now. I know, and like people are like, whoa, like, that's crazy. But what has happened is that I had different opportunities. I started as a sales engineer, went to product management, and then became in charge of growth for Spark. When we talked last time, I was working on Spark, and then later had an opportunity to go and drive growth for Creative Cloud, and that was a mission that I couldn't refuse. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, cool. But let's take one step back. And in Modern Marketing TV, we discuss all kinds of topics within modern marketing. How would you explain the people who watch this show what growth hacking is?
So, I mean, growth hacking started, I think Sean Ellis, who's a pretty popular person when it comes to growth, coined that term a few years back. And there's been a lot of conversation in the past, month or even like past year about, oh, growth hacking is dead. Like, it's not about hacking. It's about, a process and all that stuff. I was never, a fan of the word hacking, but I really like the idea. I think that was Sean's intent, that growth hacking is about just optimizing and experimenting to test hypotheses that you have for you, so that you can actually move the metric that you're trying to increase. Whether it is conversion, engagement, it depends on what you're looking at. But growth hacking is trying to blend multiple cultures together. One marketing, one product management, and one engineering. And this is how, for me, I define growth. It's like this blend of the three disciplines.
Okay, I like the fact that you say we've been discussing it over the last months, but we had you at our growth conference in Belgium a couple of years ago, and everything that was discussed on growth back then in the days was mainly focused on tactics or experimenting. But now, yesterday we attended the growth conference of Sean Ellis. I see a shift in growth marketing going more towards the bigger companies. But how would you explain that shift that's happening?
I think what has happened is that it has been maybe we sold growth hacking as the solution to all of the problems that maybe startups had or product teams had. Okay, we're going to hire a growth hacker, and we're going to actually make revenue. We're going to hire a growth hacker, and suddenly people are going to start loving our product, and then people are going to be engaged. And I think the mistake that we've made as a group is that we just oversold it. It starts with a product that solves a problem, that is already getting organic growth. And then on top of that organic growth and traction, you lay over optimization and the growth team. I wrote an article a long time ago when I started on Spark on Medium called "You Can't Grow a Shitty Product." Like, if you have a product that's like literally, you look at your retention curve, and after like 5 weeks, 6 weeks, you go down to zero. You can bring a growth hacking person, you're still gonna get a product that people don't want to use. So I think what has happened is that many startups hired growth hackers, and they realized that you could hack the top of the funnel, getting people to download your app, getting people to do the things that you want them to do, show things or whatever you want to optimize for. At the end of the day, people are still going to leave. And I think what has happened is that people went back to the basics. It's like, okay, is our product actually really solving the problem? And what can we do to leverage a growth hacker to get us to learn more rapidly to actually build a better product? And so even at Adobe, we have products at different stages. If you're going to work on growth for Photoshop, the strategy is different than in Spark, right? Probably, 30 years of product market fit. It's a different problem that you're trying to solve than for Spark, which is a brand new product for consumers or prosumers. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we've just matured. Growth was something new. And we've learned, as with experimentation, that it's not as easy. It's about building a growth strategy based on a product that's already getting traction, and what are the levers that we can pull to accelerate that growth. I think the mistake is to think that growth is going to actually solve the problem that your core product is not solving.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I agree, think that it's gonna fix the lack of traction that products without product marketing.
If you have a leaky funnel and then you bring more water, then you're gonna have more water out, and so you have to really you have to be smart about this.
Yeah, we don't want leaky buckets.
No,
of course.
No.
Okay. We discussed growth, but like, especially in Europe, here in San Francisco, everyone knows what growth hacking is, and I think everyone is probably doing it. In Europe, a lot of companies are still not doing growth hacking, or even they didn't embrace the experimental mindset. What would you tell those companies? What advice would you give them?
I think the first question to ask is, what is blocking today the company from doing experimentation? What's preventing people from doing that? And often it can be a cultural thing where people just haven't. It's not that people don't want to do it. It's just that it's something new that they have to be exposed to. Or is it something because they know about it, but the technology, the bureaucracy, the process is preventing them from doing that? Sometimes in bigger companies, that's one of the challenges, is that there's a process that has worked for many years. Why would we change it? So I think it's just trying to understand where people are coming from. One mistake I made, I can share with your audience, is thinking that I started in growth a little bit arrogant, thinking that people don't get it. Like, okay, like these people don't necessarily understand how to do it. They don't have necessarily the motivation, or they're not the right kind of people thinking the right way. And it turns out when you actually sit with people and you explain what you're trying to do, you look at the data and you say, hey, maybe we can actually do this differently. Maybe we can use this third-party tool so that we can create this thing, and then we can log some data, and then we can do this. We can talk to some customers, and instead of spending 6 weeks on that, we're going to spend 2 days. It's rare that someone's going to say, oh, that's crazy. Why would we do this? Generally, what you're going to find out is people say, I wish we could do this, but we can't because of that. So it's really also sitting and understanding where people are coming from. And then if you feel like it's really kind of like something that the culture or the company is against, because just from a principle standpoint, then you really have to think about, you and your career, and are you in the right place? If you are not a founder, if you're reporting to someone and leadership doesn't believe in that, because honestly, also maybe you haven't done a good job of explaining what it is. But if you did all your work and you still believe you're not getting traction, well, are you in the right place, right? That's important, because in growth, you absolutely need executive sponsorship. There's a portion of time, and sometimes it can be really long, where all you're going to do is experimenting, and it's not going to work. You're going to be learning, but you're not going to move the needle. So you need people above that are going to be like, you know what? Keep trying, because this is going to work. But if you don't have that support, it can be really painful.
Yeah, I like the fact that you mention the cultural change, and that companies need to really have the mindset to run experiments. How do you do that here at Adobe? And people who don't have the support from the C-level, how are there any even hacks that they can pull to get it going? Or?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked this. I just had a meeting before this, where
I think it's something a lot of people are struggling with, probably.
Yeah. The thing is, generally, especially in a company like Adobe, but I'm sure it's the same in even startups, you want to start with showing quick wins. You want to be able to tell a story that works, and proving that it works. So you can tell people, go buy this book, or read this article. Okay, fine, but try to pick something that has been a point of friction, an insight, something that you believe you can unlock and get, that you can attribute to your team, and say, hey, in a few days we're able to do that. And we exposed something that the company didn't know about. And most importantly, we did it in a way that was challenging and using a new process. And then people will be like, how can we do more of that? Well, we could do more of that if we had a designer. Okay, we'll give you a designer. And then you start building your story and you start demonstrating over and over wins. And obviously, 90% of what you're going to do is probably not going to work, but still, you're showing velocity. And that's the thing that I attacked first at Adobe. We have 20 products. It would have been insane to think that we would go on 20 product teams and say, let's show you how we're going to do growth. Because first, who are you? Like, you need to build the social capital and show that you can contribute something to the team. And so what we did, we're like, let's attack velocity. Let's unblock the team so that they can get shit done faster. And once we did that, then the teams were like, oh, let's talk. What else can we do together? And then you earn the right to work closely with the product team and propose things in the product. But that's a relationship. That's what you need to build. But the first and most important thing is, at the end of the day, you need to be able to provide something to the table. And once you've done that, you can actually earn the right to do more.
And boom, suddenly you're head of growth of Adobe.
Well, I mean, but yeah, I mean, we started doing growth in Spark. And it's true, we started meeting with executives about the way we work.
By the way, Spark, was that the first growth team within Adobe? Or was it, okay.
Yeah, Spark was, so it's a product.
What should people know about Spark?
So Spark is basically a suite of products, 3 products on mobile that allow you to create basically quickly images and videos for social media,
I still have
for storytelling. These apps have been designed in a little bit different way in terms of how the team is set up and the tools we've used and all that. And so when we went internally and started pitching kind of like the way we work, a lot of people were like, oh, this is interesting. It's a little bit different. And we were able to demonstrate some wins. And we got the ability, I had the opportunity to drive some of that process and culture and scale it inside the company.
It's good that you mentioned the process, and let's dive into a little bit deeper into that. You've been the one who started growth hacking within Adobe. You did the first growth team with Spark. Now you're responsible for the whole growth efforts across the whole Creative Cloud suite. But how would you explain the process to people who are not using it so far? Because probably you guys use something very structured to make sure not all the experiments are going all over the place.
Yeah. So what we do is we have for every product where we invest in growth. We're not doing growth for the 20 products because again, we have different strategies per product, different stages of maturity and stuff, and opportunities. So what we do is we have these little growth squads that are staffed for each product. And as part of this squad, we have a strategy. We have a roadmap that's put together on the things that we want to do. And it's true that at scale, across channels, there might be, and there has been sometimes, overlap with experimentation. So what we do is we have a stack at Adobe that we've built that helps us detect these conflicts. And also we work closely with other teams so that when we have a big bet and something we want to go after, we try to give space to a team to experiment in that area, especially the areas that have a lot of volume. Obviously, there's been another team that has been thinking about optimizing things there.
Probably.
And then on the process, I know something you wanted to discuss around sprinting, but we also have a rigorous process for documenting the experiments. What are the hypotheses? What are the KPIs? What is the volume, the channel? And we're using Airtable for that, which is an amazing tool. And we have a growth kind of like template that we use, that we follow, and it helps us get visibility on who's doing what, which channel at the time, and so on. It helps us bring sanity in experimentation, but we're not the only one to do experimentation. There's a team on Adobe.com that's doing experimentation. There's a team on different areas of the business that are doing experiments. But what we are focused on is mostly product growth, experimentation to drive and optimize the user experience, to drive engagement once people are in the product. So that's really what we're focusing on.
Cool that you guys have a growth squad, or at least call it like that. And the last time I saw you, you gave a talk on growth teams. what should people know about growth teams, and which skills or which people should you bring to the team? And probably a lot of people who are watching this show or listening to this show, they haven't started yet. What should be their first hire, or which skills do you need at first in a team? Because that's probably something a lot of people are struggling with.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's a really great article from Casey Winters, who's former growth lead from Pinterest, that talks about the different stages of a growth team. And what I like, and I've used that article as inspiration when we started, is you initially when you start, you want to go after quick wins. You want to go after things that are easy to go after. Well, easy in the sense that it doesn't require 10 engineers, doesn't require 6 data scientists. You want to go after things where, you want to be creative about the way solving that problem. And what I think you need initially is you need someone that has kind of like that entrepreneur kind of mindset where, okay, that person has a marketing hat. That person understands marketing well. And whether, you are really good at, SEO, community or whatever, but you try to get someone that has really good affinity with these things, that has been someone that has worked on the product. I think that's something that I've learned is that in growth, you want someone also that has worked on product experience, has built products, because at the end of the day, it's not just optimization. It's about providing value and providing a delightful user experience, doing user research, doing qualitative research, and all the stuff that a product manager does. So you want someone that really understands marketing well, has been a product manager, and someone that is also technical enough to run some queries, get access to some data, and figure things out. You don't have to, have someone that's going to be like a data scientist and run models but at least someone that can build a funnel, understand statistics, understand A/B testing, set up, instrumentation, and be able to use a Zapier, an Unbounce, a SendGrid to hook things up. I mean, today with just Zapier, you can move the mountains with this thing.
Can automate everything.
It's actually interesting, right? Like 5 years ago, maybe like you had to do a lot of coding. And now you just say, oh, I want to hook up SendGrid and then this. And then when it does that, I can actually just do it in like 6 clicks. And
everyone is a coder.
And I think it's amazing for us because especially in startup, when you don't have a ton of resources, then you can get things done faster. So I think that's really the three hats, like someone that is technical enough. If you need to dump a bunch of JavaScript into a website to do some Google Analytics implementation, whatever, you can do that. You understand marketing well, and you care about great product experiences.
Okay. Building up further on that, how do you guys interact with the different departments? Because, you mentioned marketing, you mentioned product. I suppose in companies like Adobe or other big companies, there are different silos for each of these domains as well. How do you guys work with them? Because if you test all the time and you're experimenting, I can imagine that's pretty difficult to keep the overview.
So the way we do that is every squad is composed of different leaders that represent different areas to do growth. So you have a designer, you have a data analyst, and so on. And one person that's critical is what we call the Lifecycle Marketer. And the Lifecycle Marketer, they are in charge of making sure that what we implement across the channels do not conflict with other things, that they are actually tested, that they come at the right time, and that as part of the product, as part of the experience, it is something that is, again, valuable to the user, delightful, and is not, spamming the user. Like if you have a campaign, overlap with something else. So that's the thing that we do, that we handle as part of that role, which is why it's important that when you start assembling your team, you've moved from one person that's doing everything to a technical marketer and maybe a data analyst and then a designer, that people can own specific areas.
But there is one gatekeeper.
And you need that. And that person can say, right now there's this campaign that's running. It's driving that kind of revenue. We're doing this thing. It's going to collide. We should wait because our experiment is not, going to move that much of a needle compared to that. So we should wait. And that's the type of decision you need to be able to make.
Okay. Also, people always talk about the impact of the things that you are doing,
Yeah.
and in the end, you're just running tests. But I think some of the things a lot of people are struggling with is, yeah, when does a test stop?
Yep.
Because yeah, when do you decide on to
Yeah.
move forward with a
Sure.
test or not?
So what we do is we've spent a lot of time last year at Adobe defining what activation means for our experiments related to onboarding. So the way we think about it is whether you work on activation, which is the first 28 days of the journey for us. So what we call activation is from the moment you sign up to Adobe to the end of the month. How do we help you get to discover the core value prop of Creative Cloud as fast as possible? And in the past, the way we've been thinking about this is we need to improve week 4, which is 28 days. But that's an output. Week 4, by definition, is an output metric. And so we were like, okay, how can we break this down into leading indicators of retention? Can we start targeting very specific KPIs? So I'll give you an example. Let's take any product at Adobe. When you start the product, there's always something that you have to do. You need to get some content in the product, right? Most of the time. So that's what we call the setup. That's a metric that we're looking at in the first week. You need to get someone to do that. Then we have the second moment, which is what we call the aha. And this is very qualitative.
Everyone knows the aha moment.
So we talk about the aha moment. What is the aha moment for someone who is a hobbyist photographer in Photoshop? Is it the first time you do curve editing and you see your image pop and you're like, wow. And then we talk about the habit, which is how many times are you repeating an operation which shows that you're getting value from the product. What we do is in every experiment, we target always the inputs. We never say, oh, we're trying to move week 4. We're saying this experiment is going to try to get 2 points more people to get to this action, which results in this amount of people, 200,000 people, which is another great advice from Casey Winters, also in an article where he talks about always speaking in absolute volume so that you don't talk about percentages. 5% lift is awesome on 600 people. Okay, we don't care. 2% lift in 1 million people. Wow, that's impact. So what we do is we always target an input. We see when it gets statistically significant. How many people have done this thing? We always do A/B testing. So we always have a control and a treatment. And once the experiment is showing lift in the key input metric that we're targeting, and it's statistically significant, then we roll it out to production. What you want to do ideally is have a universal holdout so that you can always keep a group of users that never get exposed to your experiments. So that you can quantify the compound impact of all the tests on engagement. It's a little bit tricky to do at scale, but that's what you want to do. But you can start assuming that if it's moving the metric that you want to do locally with your test and it's statistically significant, that the same thing will happen when you scale to production. So that's how we think about tests.
Okay, amazing. That's a very clear answer. Thanks.
Yeah.
Maybe going to the end of our conversation, maybe one more very direct question. A lot of companies of any size, they don't really know how to start. And a lot of the examples, of course, on the internet, they focus on the famous Silicon Valley technology companies like Airbnb or Uber,
right.
Or even Facebook in the past. But what would your advice be to actually start with all these things called growth hacking? Is it a workshop or how would you get started? Let's say you're hired as the head of growth of an industrial B2B company tomorrow. What would be the first thing you do?
The first thing I would do is I would try to get all the people that are exposed to the customers, sales, customer support, product managers, marketing, and together as a group talk about the experience with our customers. How are they feeling? And I think that's something that we don't talk enough in growth is the qualitative aspect of it. It's like spending time and talking to customers, understanding their motivations, their frustration. Because diversity is good in ideation. So bring someone from support or salesperson. What are you hearing from customers when they're using our product? Look at the data together. look at the baseline funnel. Like how are our users progressing through the funnel, and what are the main, friction points that we can. When we look at these friction points, and we say, do we feel good about this? Does that make us feel good? And you might have.
Can we improve it?
Can we improve it? And you might have the support person say, oh my God, this is something we've been trying to fix for 5 years, and this, and that. Okay, maybe that's not the right thing, but let's keep going. And then you want to start looking at the opportunities, the amount of time it's going to take to fix them, and then do opportunity sizing. I really love this quote from Brian Balfour, who runs Reforge, where he talks about, it's not about is it going to work, but is it worth doing? If we spend the next 3 weeks fixing that problem, is that even worth doing? Because you can always convince someone that your test is going to be amazing. If you have charism and if you have a little bit of, qualitative data. But often we always exaggerate because we're emotionally attached to things. So I think it's important to say, okay, if we look at the data and we were to move this metric, what does that mean to the business? But again, generally what I've observed is that when you don't have a data scientist, when you don't have a data analyst, and all you have is some reports, maybe from an analytics tool that you have, use a lot of the qualitative conversations, talk to your customers, look at what people are saying on social, look at what people are talking to on the forums, go to Gcrowd, and then look at what people are saying. And there's a lot of good stuff in there that's going to help you build hypothesis. And then if you can map that feedback back to your friction points in your funnel, then you've got a few things going on that you can go after, and you're going to learn. And I think, more of a workshop type of thing where you ask people, okay, let's put some ideas on the whiteboard. If we were to fix this problem, people are not scheduling, let's say you're the head of growth of Zoom, and then you say, okay, people are not getting their first conference scheduled in the first week. What can we do to get people to do that? Let's brainstorm. Let's do a brainstorm exercise. And one thing that I think, and one thing we've learned is it's very important to have people focused on one thing. Like because you're gonna have people say, we should fix our emails, we should do push notifications. No, our onboarding is terrible. Okay. Let's focus on one thing that is the most important
and one
thing.
metric probably.
And one metric. And that's the most important thing, is one metric. Otherwise, you end up with these, meetings where, we moved a number of people that have launched the product, and then we got that many downloads and views, and you're like, okay, all of that is vanity. How many people have done the thing that is value? Oh, 12. You're like, okay. So clearly, that's the, and again, as a team with the people that share the same values and culture, and you'll be able to make magic happen.
Okay, cool. Very clear. Since we're at the end of our conversation, usually I don't do this, but for now I'm speaking to a head of growth in Silicon Valley, so I'm going to do it anyway. People who are watching the show or are listening to this podcast, they usually love tools. I think everyone in growth loves tactics and tools. What would be that one new tool you would recommend people to look into in the next weeks?
My top 3 right now is top three.
Even better.
Zapier, number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, Airtable.
Airtable is cool. Yeah.
Number 3, I would say, it's a good question. What's my number 3 right now? I'm really excited about. I don't know. I think Airtable.
Spark. Use Spark as a term.
Yeah, I mean, use Spark to build your with Spark Page to build your slides to tell about your wins in growth. That's my top 3.
Okay, thanks for the top 3. Amazing. Thanks for having us for the conversation. Amazing to be here. And hopefully we can meet again at our conference this year and bring you back to Belgium. But that's up to you. Would be cool. But
I'd love to. Yeah. So I can practice my waffle recipe a little bit more.
Indeed.
And thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast and watching this. Always fun to talk to you guys. So
okay.
It's been fun.
Amazing. And thank you guys to sit in on another episode of Modern Marketing TV. And we're gonna enjoy Waffle Friday at Adobe here in Silicon Valley. And speak to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye guys.